Well, welcome everyone to this September 30th, 2025 meeting of the Clackamas County Budget Committee. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call a roll again for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Roll call for the Budget Committee. I'll start with the Commissioners. Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here.
The public members of the committee, Mr. Rhodes.
Here.
Ms. Radar.
Here.
Mr. Cernak.
Here.
Ms. Lee.
Here.
And Mr. Karn is unable to join today at the last moment, but otherwise, everyone is here, 9 members of the 10.
Thank you. Gary, what's first on the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I will help run through the agenda today with the support of our staff, Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Sandra Montoya, Budget Manager, and Cindy Becker, Project Manager in the Office of County Administration. The first item of business, actually, is to seek your approval and vote for the Budget Committee meeting minutes for May 27 to 29, 2025. Copies of the minutes were distributed to you, and they're posted online. We're seeking if you have any edits to the minutes and/or a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I move that we approve the minutes as posted.
Second.
Right. It sounds like I'm in charge of running this one then, Gary. So
Yes, Chair.
James Rhodes has moved to approve the meeting minutes for the period of May 27th through the 29th, 2025. It has been seconded by Jan Lee. And is there any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Ms. Rader.
Aye.
Mr. Cernak.
Aye.
Ms. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0, Mr. Chair, with 1 absence.
Thank you. Gary, what's next?
Thank you. Next is July 2025 year-to-date revenue and expenses. Elizabeth and Sandra will present. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Sandra Montoya, Budget Manager. So before you in your packet, and let me get to the page number and I'll read that out. So we've got on page 12, it's Clackamas County. That is all funds in Clackamas County. And it's just revenues on the top and then expenses on the bottom. What I would like to point out is this is July. Because it is the first month of our fiscal year, one is that we only have a portion of one payroll. So you're going to see that personnel is very low and the expenses. And that's because the majority of the personnel expenses were posted back into June. It's called an accrual and it's an accounting process. And then the other portion of the payroll went into August. So only 4 days of the payroll got posted into July. And you'll just have to trust me that it's proper accounting, but that's why you're seeing it so low in July. So July, just as a form of practice, always kind of skews our months. And it doesn't really normalize until you see it in a quarterly number. So we just want to forewarn you, don't get thrown off by the numbers that you're seeing in personnel in July. Beyond that, then you're going to see materials and services and capital outlay. Those 3 categories together make up our operating subtotal. And then beyond that, you'll see debt service, special payments, transfers, and contingency. And again, the first page on page 12 is all of Clackamas, all funds. The next one we've got is the general fund. And the column over, you'll see it's an 8.3% average. All we've done is done 12 months or a year divided by 12 so that we have 8.3. That's just a reference point for you so that you could sort of gauge, are we on track? Are we on or off? Some revenues don't come in 1/12, and some costs don't come in on a 1/12 basis. So when there's anomalies like that, what we're going to try and do is put notes to the side. And really, because this is our first month, we're really just kind of testing out for you. Do you like this format? Is there something that you want that's different? And we are very flexible and happy to make adjustments so that you're getting the data that you want and we're meeting your needs. As time goes on, we will be able to do graphs for you so that you can see a month over month or a quarter over quarter. It's just coming in with this one, there isn't any data to give you as a comparison, so you don't have, a table that compares. So I just want to put that out there. Beyond the All Clackamas and the general fund, we do have the component units, so that's the agencies and the districts that you hear about or you see about with the other budget committees. And you are not over those, but we just wanted to put those all out there and so that they're reportable, because the budget committee also is made up of the board, and so there would be interest by the board. But this budget committee is only over Clackamas County, which would be page 12 and page 13. So with that, if you want me to dive into any specifics, we can do that, or if you have any questions.
Yeah, Commissioner Savas has a
So I have a question, and maybe you said it. If you did, I'm sorry, but I was studying the numbers as you were speaking. So if you asked about the format and what we think, so I'm going to tell you what I think, or what I'd like to see, I guess, and that is, but let me first start with a question. You've got the data for all of July and August, I would gather, right? Because we're in the end of September. So you can see that, you already have that there. So how come we don't have maybe, I'm trying to understand your ask, right? How we want to see different. So this doesn't tell me a whole lot. I mean, the second column, right, where that shows the 33,919,000, that doesn't tell me a whole lot. Especially when you qualify it with saying that's not the full picture, it's only part of the payroll. So what would you recommend if we want to get a better picture? Would it be, like 2 months in or 3 months in, or would it be a series? I mean, what do you recommend?
So a full quarter for quarter one. Once we get past quarter one, things will normalize significantly. And the rest of the months of the year, July, the beginning, is always going to look a little abnormal, as is June of every fiscal year. June, it's because it's got a lot of accruals so it has a lot of expenses that get backdated into June. So it will look heavy. June will look abnormally heavy. July will look abnormally light on a financial statement, a financial report like this. So this is actually behaving very much like we would expect.
Okay.
Yes, so first quarter is when you're really going to get a good feel for how the activity is happening. And we close a month 45 days after month end. So the organization needs 45 days to close a period. So July 31st, we don't fully close through July 31st until September 15th. So that is our expectation for having good data for July 31st is September 15th.
Okay. So for the quarter, that would be the middle of November.
Correct.
Okay. So I'd love to see that.
Okay.
And the other thing that I guess I looked at the other side, not of the equation, but of the calendar, is that when we sit here as a budget committee in May, June, we can't see all of June because it hasn't happened yet, right? And you don't have all of the numbers for May, right? So it's kind of fuzzy, but it'd be nice to know literally at this stage how that really did pan out, right? What were the actuals compared to where the budget, where did it land, right? And by now, 45 days past, you mentioned September 15th, we would have that. So that would be another piece of information that I think I'd love to see.
Okay, and remember, as we've been sharing, and we've been working towards this actually for a couple of years, but that is closing the months. And if you recall, we've been very transparent with the fact that we had not been closing the months for a while. We started working towards that, I want to say, so 2 or 3. We started 3 years ago. Last year was when we really started making headway. And now we should be able to have comparisons, so we should be able to start to get you like a year over year and start to see some good data. But that's also why we've been harping, and I hopefully harping's not too strong of a word, but really pushing on, we need the departments to participate and meet the deadlines, because it helps us give you better data.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Savas, to answer your question about where is year end, because we did, we're way past 6:30 at this point, and we're working on the audit. So what we want to provide you are audited year-end financials, and those are not ready at this time. We'll be submitting our trial balance tomorrow to our auditors, and we'll begin the process with Clackamas County. Today, we have issued the 4 component units, the first ones of our audit. So some of these special districts that you see in the financials, but for Clackamas, we're not there yet. We could give you pre-audit numbers, but they have not been audited and finalized at this point.
And to my colleagues on the Budget Committee, I just want to just say that, and thanks, shout out to Gary for keeping me kind of posted on some of the things, but I know we're already having unanticipated expenses that are concerning, very concerning for me. So I'm probably going to be asking more and looking more than ever before, especially when you look at the very end of the forecast where it's in the red. And so I'm very nervous knowing that, we've cut, and we're already facing more cuts. So it's just a reality. And I've said this, I'll just say it, just to get it off my chest. In my career we'll call it that, or my tenure as a commissioner, I've never seen it so tight before. This is the tightest it's ever been from a budget standpoint, so I'm really worried.
Right. Other questions, comments? Yes, go ahead, Wendy.
Well, I think just to answer your question of things that I would love to see, probably never get it, but I'll ask. I just feel that it would be nice if the personnel services was a little more granular, because I know there's a lot in that one line item. And so as we go forward and we're able to look at 1 month over the other, it'd be nice to know what part of that number is the one that's going up and down. Just would make it easier, because 80% of the expenses is in one line item and you can't read it.
Great question.
We can provide that, we can break that out.
Thank you.
Could our Budget Committee, any other questions? Right.
Oh,
Anything?
and the other thing, if I may, Chair, is July, the beginning fund balance, as soon as we have audited numbers, that beginning fund balance will be posted. So the year end, that gets carried over. I always, if you can think of a zigzag, the ending fund balance in one year gets brought up into the beginning fund balance of the next. And so that's what we're doing. Elizabeth just mentioned that we're going through the audit now. So as soon as that number gets finalized and we have a solid number, then it gets posted to the beginning fund balance. So that will get posted, and it will probably be a few months, but we will keep you posted on that.
Great. All right. Anything else, Gary? Anything else before we move on?
Not seeing any. Ready to move on, if you're okay with that. The final item today, but the one that will take the most discussion, is general fund forecast as of June 10th. Is that correct? June 10th, as of June 10th, 2025. This is page 21 of your packets, and Andrew, if you could put that on the screen as well. I'm going to kick this off and then let Elizabeth and Sandra add to the comments. So when you last met Budget Committee members in May, you saw several versions of the financial forecast for the general fund. And the proposed budget I gave you showed a deficit starting in year 11. And we've been through this, and you fixed that and corrected that. And when we ended the budget week, we had a in-the-black budget for 30 years. Forecast in the black for 30 years. And now, as of June 10th, we're already in the red again. So I want to explain why. And then I also want to talk about some of the unanticipated expenses I am witnessing here at the county that I've told the commissioners about, but I want the public members to know as well. And I've already said this publicly, so it's not a surprise. First, the forecast. If you're looking online, you can see year now 29 and 30, or actually year 30 and 31 is in the red. And that is for one purpose so far, and that is explained on page 22, the next page. This includes an $8 million estimated cost of the Redland Road Highway 213 road improvements that a traffic study by the City of Oregon City showed that we needed to make because of the traffic impacts of the replacement courthouse. My staff does not, and Oregon City staff does not believe that's a true cost. It's much lower, much lower. We had put in the forecast the lower number of around 1 to 2 million. But to be totally transparent, it's possible, it could cost 8 million, and we want to be totally upfront about that, so we've added that 8 million number back to the forecast. And that's why it's in the red in 30 years. We've always planned for this, there's no surprise here, but we anticipated a lower number, which it's really going to be lower, but because it's not final yet, we shouldn't guess. So we're putting that total cost. Should that come to pass, I do not expect it to come to pass. As we know more, we'll tell you, but want to be upfront about it. That's why you're seeing the red in the forecast as of this moment, as of June 10th anyway. And as noted, this is unaudited. We don't have the final audit completed for the last fiscal year. And until those numbers start moving, this short forecast may change again. Now, this is not in your packet, and this is a verbal update. There are unanticipated expenses that have occurred so far in the first 3 months of this fiscal year, all legitimate but unanticipated, that is impacting the forecast that you don't see yet because the expenses have not occurred yet to put in the forecast. Some of these I can't tell you because they are settlement agreements that have been discussed with the board in executive session. They're not public yet, but they are some significant costs for various settlements for various reasons. I know that's vague, and I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but I'm adding the numbers up. There's also been the board recently gave some additional funds of general fund to the district attorney's office to reflect some loss of federal and state dollars for victim advocates. I've said the board doesn't backfill, but you did this one case. But it was legitimate and a reason the board felt was important. Only through February 2026, however, not permanently. As well, this is not a secret yet, not a secret, the recovery center the county is working on may need some infusion of general funds to complete the project. There'll be a full policy discussion with you in a few weeks to talk about that, but that's something I'm looking forward and anticipating. All to say is, I'm estimating at this point, based on vague information I'm sharing with you, probably around $2 to $3 million in unanticipated general fund expenses for the current fiscal year. Let's think that in. Sink that in. $2 to $3 million of unanticipated general fund expenses for the current fiscal year that we are only 3 months into. So that definitely will impact the forecast. We'll definitely be in the red. And that's something that we'll talk more about today. And Elizabeth has a suggestion about when and how we should address that. We could perhaps start making some impacts now, or we can wait until the next fiscal year, so when you meet in May, you'll have a cut scenario. We have a very stable budget at Clackamas County. We are better than almost all of our neighboring jurisdictions, but the reality is there's uncertainty with federal dollars and state dollars. The cost of everything continues to go up. And we're always, as Commissioner Savas said, we're in a very, very tight budget. So we have to look very carefully at how we spend our dollars, and there's no more surplus funds in general funds, at least at Clackamas County. So we'll probably be in a cut scenario for the unforeseeable future. That's not to be a downer today, but to be realistic with you. So that is my preamble. If Elizabeth and Sandra, if you'd like to add or talk more specifically about the forecast, and then we're happy to answer your questions and have a discussion with you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I'll kick it off with just a couple of things. This is June 10th, and we try to leave it as solid and untouched as possible, for the longest time until we can get some real numbers to put in here, because it is a living document. So as soon as the audit's done, as Sandra said, we'll add the beginning fund balance that's updated for this fiscal year. As we do learn about expenses, unanticipated expenses, we want it to go in there. So it's a guide, but I also want to share that what Gary also said is we're in a very good position, better than most counties, I believe, in the state of Oregon. Going out 5 years, we're still solid. Going out 10 years, we're still solid. So the immediate forecast still looks good. And it is hard. Things get very limber out, past even 5 years. So going out 30 years it's a great effort on our part. It's hard to predict. And as just one expense that we added fluctuated 30 years down the road. So we want to share how volatile a forecast of this length is and can be. So just want to share a couple items, and Sandra has some more input.
I think I'm probably the Debbie Downer. Elizabeth's more optimistic, and when we talk, I just keep reminding her, the forecast is so sensitive. I'm probably tend to be more on Commissioner Savis's side, is just, it's just on that lever. It's just on the cusp. It doesn't take much. It almost feels like it's just a grain of sand, and it just starts to tip. So, you know, and you all know this because you're seeing it, you're living it with us, and so just caution as you proceed. And I know I say this, but I also know that you feel the weight of it. And so I'm sorry. I wish that we could come to you and bring better news. It's not that it's bad. I guess the good news I will tell you is that Moody's did reaffirm the AAA rating once again for the county. So they give you huge pats on the back for being able to do the tough things, being able to make the tough decisions and stand firm. So those are really, that's high praise in this economy and in these times. So congratulations. But those don't come without some really tough conversations and some tough decisions. So, you know, just keep soldiering on. And we hope that we help you and that we provide the information timely for you to be able to do that.
And belt tightening.
Yes, and belt tightening, yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner West.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Comfort and Ms. Montoya, thank you so much for your yin and your yang of how you each see this. I think both viewpoints are incredibly valuable, and as a policymaker, it gives me great insight. And I listen with really great respect for both you and Commissioner Savas and your many years of history and your really being experts in public finance and budgeting. And so I appreciate that. I see how I love the grain of sand analogy, you know, and if we have scales and you just and it goes the wrong way, that can be really difficult. We do have significantly better, though as painful as this has been, significantly better than our counterparts. I mean, and it's not close. We're talking like tens of millions of dollars in our counterparts in our other counties and cities of our, like, that would be comparable to us. And we're talking right now, I mean, Gary's talking about 3 or 4 million, and we're looking at when, I don't know if none of us will be here, you know, in year 29 and 30 or 30 and 31. Not even close. And so is it accurate? I know we're trying to be aspirational, and I actually like the principles and the values on why we did this very, you know, it's really a strict kind of forecast outlook and the importance of being always in the black. However, I don't even know what I'm gonna eat for breakfast tomorrow morning, let alone understand if this is even, I mean, it's a little bit of it is a guess. I mean, it's like blindly throwing the dart into, you know, I mean, it's just, it is, we have no idea actually if that is true. And maybe we should revisit why we're doing that, because it's so different than everyone else. And maybe talk about like what the goal was to go so far out to the point to where if we buy paper clips in the county, a grain of sand is gonna shift, right? And so, I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing this. I know we are principled in why we did it, but I think just because we're bringing this up for the public's edification, this is an important decision that we made as a body, and maybe talking about that again and what the goal was and the impact of the courthouse and other things. So, you know, you're right, but we actually have no idea if we're in the black or the red 30 years out from now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, just to respond to Commissioner West, I think the forecast and being very deliberate about this is the best tool we can ask for to kind of see out there. And I would say that, with the policy that we're going to revisit this and make sure and test this to make sure every year that it's, it's accurate. And of course, it's going to move. It's going to move one way or another. But I ask myself, are we, staff are all doing a great job. I don't question anything. I have complete confidence in our staff. But I ask myself sometimes, even we have this, are we actually underestimating the expenses, or, because we're at the precipice, right, of going into the, well, now with what Gary shared a little bit, it's probably more red. But I also look at the fact that here we are, we're 3 months in, and we already got at least a few million that we didn't anticipate, plus this possible increase. So you multiply that times 3 more quarters to come, if that's a trend, we're going to be in trouble. Another way of saying it is one annual $100,000 expense added into this formula comes up after 30 years with an accelerator. Even without an accelerator, it's $3 million a year that you go into the red, right? And if you put in an inflationary thing, it's even a bigger number. And then it multiplies. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is how percentages multiply and compound and compound and compound. So that's the unknown. We've got a revenue base, right, which is going to be the taxes. We hope that it comes out that way. It could be a little worse, could be a little better. It'll be recalibrated every year, so we have the best picture we can get. Sandra used the grain of sand, I use the snowball, right? So, I just kind of look at it that if we don't get a hold of it now, it's going to be so big, it'll be an avalanche, right? So we got to make sure we contain it. And this is the tool to help contain us and guide us to make sure. Short-term gain is short-term gain, and if we just have a hole that's that big, there's no way our kids or our grandkids are going to be able to dig their way out. So that's why I advocate for this and appreciate the work. But it's a very dynamic document. Just remember that. It's always a dynamic document, and we're going to constantly be recalibrating.
We can only foresee what we can foresee, Commissioner, and I brought up earlier today, I'll just use as an example, like what if the timber receipts change for ONC lands? That's a giant infusion of cash, and then that completely changes the dynamic too, but that happens. I mean, we know our 5-year forecast is solid and are probably 7, maybe even out to 10, but beyond that, it's Vegas. We're gambling. We have no idea. And so what's the balance in being functional good government, being the opposite of most of Oregon and having austerity and being principled with public dollars in a way that the state has, well, frankly, never quite been able to do since I've been alive, right? How do you build that public trust? But also, how are we able to function and do good government if we're shackled by 30 years out when we really have no damn idea what that's going to look like? So where's the balance there in being able to be functional? Are we acting fearful and paralyzed by that fear by a 30-year mark? Are we able to be responsive and effective but still being judicious with public dollars? It doesn't quite answer my question because we could go either way and swing at any instance. I mean, look at how volatile state and federal government is. State, and the federal government, and we're caught in the middle like a piece of beef jerky with 2 dogs going at it. And that swings us wildly, and we have no idea, especially 30 years out, with a different generation sitting here, what that looks like. And are we paralyzing ourselves from being effective?
Thank you. Commissioner Helm?
Yeah, I like this. And I appreciate this document, and I actually appreciate it going out into the future as well. I share both your thoughts about it being a little depressing. There's a lot of variables. Obviously, there's a lot of variables, and it is aspirational. I understand that. But it also keeps us in check, and also keeps us with our eye on the ball throughout the process. And while you don't know what you're having for breakfast tomorrow, I bet when you bought your house, you had a way to pay for it.
I had a job, correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you had a plan in place for a big expense like that every month. So I think the comparison is a little odd, but that's okay. I like this because I think that we need to visit this often. And when we sit here as a board and have discussions about a recovery center or the property next to the recovery center or an event center, and we don't have money to pay for things right now, we should really be putting those things on the back burner until we have a way to be financially stable. And to stay financially stable is not to go spend more money. So I share probably Commissioner Savas's thoughts on this, because I love P&Ls, and I love your guys' version of a P&L. It needs a little more information for me, but Paul already said if it had previous years on it, that'd be really helpful to me to see actuals last year versus this year. Because then you do get you get a good idea of if, the July numbers are odd, but guess what? Last year's July numbers were odd because it only had 1 month of payroll. So I live and breathe P&Ls because they tell the whole story. So I appreciate these documents. Thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. And first of all, thank you for the hard work of bringing this information. And just kind of my own philosophy is I'm a big fan of quarterlies to really give you kind of this accurate forecast, which is how it kind of planned for the year and adjust throughout the year. I think it's when we get those, obviously, then we look at those and figure out how to adjust. So whether it's keeping positions open, whether it's cut back on cost, I mean, I think that's really, to me, has always been a good gauge of really how to kind of keep us within budget. I do want to just kind of express my concern, just economically, both locally, throughout the state and nationally. Some federal dollars, I mean, we were questionable whether or not we were going to get some up to $158 million. We're also concerned about economically here locally. I mean, when you see Starbucks shutting down lots of stores, people, honestly, those expensive coffees are out for a lot of people. McDonald's, and you're really just seeing impact across the community. You're also seeing bankruptcies are up. I've talked to a number of businesses that just are struggling to keep their doors open. I mean, I talked to one who's going to close his doors. I know another one that just filed bankruptcy. So, I mean, when I look around our community, what's going on, I do have concern. And I know that as I look at it, I got into this because I knew that courthouse took away our cushion, and that's what causes me concern. And I agree with Commissioner Helm over here to be really cautious about spending event center or something. I'm all about trying to look, is there ways to generate revenue or other cost savings? The golf course, for example, does generate revenue. It does help offset other costs, and I think right now, all of us just having to be extremely frugal. It is really hard. Gary and I, we've had a number of folks approach us just on shortfalls of funding. And so right now, I believe we are on the precipice of really some tough financial decisions. And as we move forward, I just say we've got to move very cautiously. And I do appreciate the work. I do kind of following up on, I agree with Ben, I agree with Paul. I think it's always nice to kind of see that 30-year forecast. I really rely on the 5 or 10-year forecast as really kind of where we're more likely pretty close to. And obviously, a lot of things can happen. I do want you all to know, I mean, we are working very diligently trying to secure federal dollars. We're looking at state dollars. We're looking at private dollars. We've been meeting with a lot of individuals. So I don't want folks to think all doom and gloom. There are individuals out there actually that are financially stable and willing to help in some ways, and those are some of the individuals that we're talking to see how they might be able to help in this effort. So I know Commissioner Savas has a comment, then I wanted to go to Gary. Yes, did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. Kenneth, why don't I let you go?
Okay. I just have a couple points. I think the 30-year makes sense for the outlook. I'd say a 5 or a 10 makes sense if over the 5 or 10 years it's kind of expected to be flat. But given that over the next 29, 30 years we're chewing up our reserve, I don't think a 5 or a 10-year makes sense, given that throughout that whole process the trajectory is the ending balance continues to decline. And I think you want the projection to cover to a stabilization point. I've got a couple of quick questions. One about the assumptions. I didn't notice anything about like an interest revenue factor. Is any of the unappropriated general fund balance in interest generating investment, or is that just sitting in cash?
We have an interest earning assumption. Give me 1 second and I can tell you what that is.
That was one of the questions I had. That unencumbered.
It's a detailed assumptions tab.
It is.
I would assume.
Would you like to ask your other questions?
Yeah, I have one other question. My understanding is throughout the cuts, it's largely been, not very many positions have had to be cut. Is that correct? Whether it's vacancy savings or not hiring and it makes me wonder, because as noted, costs have gone up for a lot of things, especially goods. How the maintenance and upkeep on all the county's assets has been impacted, and if we're doing enough there to keep those, because you talked about unanticipated costs. If we're not doing the maintenance that we need to do, we will be hit with much larger expenses that we aren't really able to absorb. So I just want to keep that in mind, given that I don't know all the details of those budgets, but that's another concern that I had.
I'll answer the first part, and I'll ask Elizabeth to answer the asset maintenance. For the FTEs, I did not direct any FTE cuts last year for budget purposes, but there were some FTE reductions for departments just to live within their means. You may recall H3, Health, Housing, Human Services eliminated some, PGA eliminated one. There was another department. They just did that to maintain. That was their choice. I'm sad they had to do that, but there was no direction to have major FTE cuts beyond that. But there was some loss. And Elizabeth, can you answer the maintenance question, please?
Yes, thank you. So we do have a very robust preventative maintenance program on our assets that is followed very closely. We also look at capital replacement and large capital projects to keep those assets working in addition to the preventative maintenance. We have them all identified. And because of, not an abundance of dollars, we're always shifting to look at what is the priority this year, what can we do in the next 6 months. We have identified, because the jail and several of the sheriff's office assets are in need, because we haven't had a saving, so we're kind of like, okay, now we need to replace the jail system. So where do we find those dollars? So we have allocated several $1 million a year for the sheriff's office assets as well, which are tracked, and the preventive maintenance is tracked separately, but the general fund is supporting those major assets. So it's a little bit of both, or a lot of both, preventative maintenance on our assets, as well as addressing those asset needs as they come up.
That's it.
Do you have the interest question answer?
I do. We have a 2% growth assumption on the interest income.
Okay, thank you.
And also that's adjusted as that cash balance it changes.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Schrader has a comment.
Did you turn my light off, Craig? I'll turn it back.
Oh, sorry.
Better put my mic on. So you just mentioned facilities and maintenance and prevention. However, isn't it true that the courthouse is under a different structural umbrella where the maintenance is being taken care of? Could you address that a little bit?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. So we have 3 components to our courthouse payment. One is the principal for the loan that was taken out to build the 4 corners of the courthouse. And then we also have the maintenance contract, which is Honeywell. And so the Honeywell contract, we pay also monthly, and that has an escalator each year for the 30 years. So that is separate from when I'm speaking of other courthouse, good catch, other county assets. So it's excluding the maintenance, particularly with the new courthouse.
And isn't there a contract that Again, we are directly paying for that maintenance, or?
Yes, it was
Yes.
negotiated with the whole RFP process to build the courthouse. Was a component was the maintenance, which includes a reserve component. So if we have an HVAC system, it has a lifespan of 20 years. We are actually anticipating putting those dollars toward that reserve to replace that HVAC system in 20 years. But it's all part of the initial contract that was established.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that, Paul, I didn't mean to turn
Yeah,
the light
no
on.
worries. So just responding to Commissioner West, as far as, I guess I would just paraphrase it, are we being too conservative, right? Essentially, I think that's maybe what you're trying to say, and, maybe it's not that bad.
I'm just having the conversation.
Right.
I don't even disagree with you.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But like, is there such thing that we are not being practical in how we do this, and we're actually kind of hamstringing ourselves? Is that that's mostly my conversation around that question, and just being honest about that? I'm not, I mean, I respect the decision of this very competent and experienced budget committee, and we clearly are outperforming and doing things differently than the rest of the region.
Yeah, that's-
Clearly.
And that's what I wanted to
And nobody's
respond
doing a 30-year, like, I don't know, I just watched the city of Wilsonville make a really bad financial decision so they could have something they want, so they could barely maybe make a 5-year forecast. And that's the city I live in. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, we just,
So I want to build on that. That's where I really wanted to respond to. And I would say, like you just said, but a little bit differently. So we've been doing the longer-term forecast for quite a long time. So I would say that we're not in that position where we're better than some of the other large government by accident. We're in this position because we have taken this approach. So that just gives me confidence. The other things we don't really know is inflation. Is inflation is it going to level off? I call that jaws of death when, or where if you were to graph our expenses and then graph our revenues, clearly we're in a situation right now where costs are way outpacing our revenues. And our revenues are fixed. We're on a fixed income.
Yeah.
Basically, that 3% plus a little bit of development money.
Yeah.
So that is one factor, and staff will be looking at that every year, budget year, every time we update this. And then when it comes to expenditures, just be mindful that a one-time expenditure looks a lot different than an ongoing expenditure. I use my example of $100,000 per year on an ongoing, what that looks like after 30 years. It's a lot of money. And with regards to, for example, the golf course, I would say that, does it generate revenue? Yes. But a few years ago, it was underwater, and we take some of that revenue and we direct it to county parks to make it whole. But I remember for a period of time that the golf course was actually underwater. So we've actually recalibrated that, but the small amount of money it does generate, goes towards county parks. But costs are associated with that, labor and all that. So it's not a huge cash cow, but it's just something we always got to watch. So it's true to say that it does generate revenue, but there were times when it has not. So we got to watch it all the time to make sure we're still in the positive to get there. But again, all these variables, and then when I say dynamic, all these variables will be factored in, and we just can't predict the future on inflation or anything else. So, but we didn't get here by accident. My point.
I agree.
Gary, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering if I could get a copy of the Moody's report, and it'd be interesting to know if they had identified any potential risks or saw anything. Usually they say, reasons for an upgrade would be this, or reason for a downgrade would be this, and then they're generally really clear about what those factors are. But I agree. I really think one of the most important variables is the economy, and whether or not it's one-time expenditures or ongoing. And most of what I heard Gary say was one time. And if you just think about, how much that would spend down your fund balance, you're still going to be in a really good position to maintain your AAA category unless there's some really big factor, and as long as you can maintain your personnel costs. because you talked about that $100 or $100,000 on an ongoing basis, that's where it's, it's not your one-time hits, it's going to be those additions that are going to kill you. And that's where inflation, it's hard to measure right now. But a big hit, a big earthquake, or a big, something like that, that's where you're going to lose your tax revenue. So I guess my point is, you're managing at a AAA level, AAA bond rating level, which is like the gold standard. You guys are doing a great job. On the other hand, it really is just a matter of a management decision about spending your fund balance. And, that may or may not change your bond rating at all. It's just a management decision, and if you need to do it, you need to do it. And if there's a big earthquake or a big flood, everybody's in the same boat. So, you can, I just wouldn't be afraid of that. So.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? I want to make sure I'm
Yes.
not missing.
To answer Commissioner West's earlier question, 3 years ago, the Board of Commissioners directed me and staff, if we're going to pay for this courthouse internally, prove it. And it was Elizabeth and Sandra's brilliant idea, well, let's do a 30-year forecast and prove it. And you did, that we could fund it internally, but at an expense, figuratively speaking, that we be tightly budgets for 30 years. So that's why we did the 30-year originally. And in my opinion, I like it too, because it just helps us keep on course. And you're absolutely right. We can't predict 5 days from now, but 30 years is impossible. We make assumptions. We just do our best, and we revisit constantly and every year. And I quickly, if you'll indulge me, a quick story. When I became county administrator 6 years ago, the day before I became county administrator, I was a department director, and we had all heard there's about a $5 million deficit at the county we had to correct for the upcoming budget year. And the morning I became county administrator, the first 30 minutes on the job, I was told by the prior finance director, actually, Gary, the gap is 12 million, not 5. And I did not I didn't fall off the chair. I didn't quit. I said, oh, wow, okay, let's work on that. But it was tough for the board and for staff. And ever since, we've been in a pickle. But we didn't have a 30-year forecast then. I don't think we had a 10-year forecast then. So to have this looking this far out, I think is very helpful for all of us, mainly for the board, just to help you make good, effective decisions on how you spend public dollars. That's all it is. We just do our best. So I would say we are not in terrible shape. We are not. So please don't anyone be alarmed. We just have to be very consistent and a careful eye on every dollar spent. I know the board is. I know members of the budget committee you are. I've raised some things for you to think about, all as you look forward on how you spend public dollars. So thank you.
And there's more to that story that Gary talked about, that 12 million, which 12, 13 million, because it just go back one budget cycle, and I was sitting up here getting shot at, so to speak. Gary was not administrator at that time, and I was saying, this forecast is not right. It doesn't match the other forecast. I did my numbers, I crunched it. We are off by at least 10 million on the forecast. And I had my colleagues on the dais saying, oh, Savvy, this, you're wrong, you're so on and so forth. And so the moral of the story is that the way I got there was taking all these forecasts and crunching them and realized, I'm sorry, this is garbage. Those forecasts back then were not well done, and hence this kind of gives a undisputable record of at least how things were calculated, and that's why I got confidence. I don't want to go back to where we were before on that 5-year forecast that was very fuzzy at best. And being $13 million off, just imagine if that went on for a year. I mean, it wouldn't take very long to raise red flags, but there's an example of not doing it right.
All right, any other comments? Jan?
Yes, thank you. I really commend the staff and you as the commission for doing so well in these turbulent times. When we have something coming down at us from the federal government, we have the state government who's also impacted, and anything we can do at the local level to better our position is really appreciated by everybody in the county.
Thank you. comments. I'd like to kind of respond to Wendy's comment, and I think she's exactly right. I will just tell you, I unfortunately was around during the 2009, 10, 11 economic downturn, and I think we were all very nervous at that time. And what we ended up doing, all you were not here, and Gary wasn't in his position, but I still remember is we were putting more into reserve and contingencies at the time that I felt like it is raining. So as we navigate this, that's why I believe in economic forecasting as well, as how is our economy doing, and paying attention to that. And what you kind of touched on is that there might come a point in time where we might have to use some money, right? And that's kind of what I heard you say. And I think at that time, we had a lot of vacancies. It did eliminate positions. So as we navigate these difficult times, I think we also take a hard look at doing all we can to keep all the employees that work here. So just want to say that. So Gary, unless you had anything, or my colleagues?
That is our agenda for today, unless any other comments anyone would like to make, or feedback for staff as we prepare you for May coming up, sooner than you think.
So, Gary, you gave a rough run-through on some of the unanticipated, and I guess what I'm also looking for is a sense of where we landed on year-end with our presumed year-ends, right? Any surprises, anything out of line, everything come in under? Or is there anything any overages that we didn't anticipate from where we thought we would be?
For the end of last fiscal year?
And June 30.
We don't have final numbers yet, so I don't want to say a number that's not accurate. We're still looking at all the departments, so I don't have an answer for you yet, but not sure yet.
Okay. Well, I do want to just get out on the table is that when we were talking about FTEs in May, June, at the budget cycle, that I think following that, I heard even more numbers that were, nothing was solid. It seems like there were things that were changing, and I want to better understand that, because an FTE is, even $100,000 example you mentioned earlier, that's an underestimate for an FTE on average. I think an FTE on average is above 100,000. So if there's an FTE change, that's money. That's a cost, right? And if we are filling departments for real full-time positions to make that budget whole, and then it turns out that those positions weren't filled, that was also a cost we were paying for that we didn't need to pay for, right? So I just want to get a better idea of those numbers on the FTE side, and make sure that how that's reported is done correctly. And I think the other one was, if I recall, was the postings. As far as the postings, I think somebody was touched on. Are postings now regular? I think we've heard that things have improved quite a bit, but are we where we want to be when it comes to timely postings?
Are you speaking of the sheriff's office or the county?
Anywhere, yeah.
So that's a motion the Budget Committee made, in particular to the sheriff's office. We have till November, the sheriff's finance team and the county finance team. As Sandra mentioned earlier, and Elizabeth, we haven't closed July yet. So in the next few weeks, I hope, we'll report back to the board that first month of reporting. So we'll come back to you on that. We don't have that data yet. It appears to be working, I think, but we'll have that formal data for you. The FTEs quickly, if a department indeed had a vacancy at the end of the fiscal year, we sweep all the unused general fund back to the general fund. So any department that didn't spend the money for the general fund, we take it all back. So it goes back into the unappropriated fund balance, beginning fund balance. So we accommodate for that, but we do track it and need to track it. All to say is, I'm sorry it's so vague, but we want to close the audit and make sure the audit is clean and clear to give you accurate numbers. I hate to give you a number that will change, so that's why I don't have the exact data today.
So would it be better maybe to have this meeting after that, like late November? Or, I'm just wondering how we can, I don't want to wait till next year for this group to meet again. So when's our next planned meeting?
Actually, this committee will meet quarterly, and you're going to meet again, I think it's the December 9th, so yes.
Okay.
We'll have it all for you then.
Excellent.
Commissioner West has a question.
Because we can be a little doom and gloomy, but there has been a really bright spot that we probably have not championed enough, is that credit rating. And just for the public's edification, why is that the gold standard? Who issues that? And then why do you think we earned it? I guess that's for either Ms. Comfort or Ms. Montoya, and if you could maybe just toot the horn a little bit at Clackamas County about how our method of managing public dollars has really, we've earned some respect and something we should be proud of.
So there's 3 companies that rate public agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch, and you have to request and pay for somebody to analyze your data and give you a credit rating. And once they do, then they monitor you. So every 2 to 3 years, you get monitored, and they give you an outlook. And when, for the 2020, I think it was 2020, maybe it was 2016, 2020?
When we did the debt.
Oh, with yes, it was. Okay, so for 2020, when we did the full faith and credit debt issuance, we applied with Moody's for a credit rating, and they reaffirmed AAA, and AAA is the highest that you can get. So it would be probably equivalent to a private credit score of like, I don't know, 825 or higher. It's up there. It's solid. It's saying that our entity has almost no risk of defaulting on the debt payment. And really, so the credit rating is for investors to be able to look at and determine what is the risk of failure of them getting their money back. That in essence is what is supposed to be happening.
And that impacts future expenses if we ever have to go out for a bond, if we ever need looking at rates, like.
Correct.
We get the most prime.
Correct. We get the lowest interest rate, so the higher your credit rating, the lower the interest, the borrowing rate is.
Do you
So-
know where our surrounding partners are, if it's unusual in Oregon to have a AAA credit rating, or if that is a common thing?
I
You
don't
don't know? Okay.
know. I don't. But I can tell you, like, last year or 2 years ago, what the federal government's credit rating was downgraded. So governments will get downgraded or upgraded depending on how well they do. And a government is, my entire career, have been striving for a AAA credit rating. So
Is it easy to do?
no, it's hard to do.
hard,
It's hard
okay.
to do. And to come to an entity that has a AAA credit rating is, I mean, it's the gold standard.
Okay.
It really is what you want, but it's also really hard to maintain. So again, once you reach it, it's just as hard to maintain it. So it doesn't stop when you reach it.
Okay.
Could I add something?
Oh, yeah, Wendy was in the banking industry reviewing government entities' financials. So she's very familiar with all this.
Well, I'd just like to add that include, that when they do the rating, they consider off-balance sheet financing such as lease payments in that debt calculation. So it just means that, the courthouse payments is fully incorporated into that rating.
Okay.
So, just as a thought.
And Gary, I just had one other point that maybe we could look at, and that is kind of following up on what Paul had said about those positions that are unfilled. And as you mentioned, if those positions aren't filled, we scoop that back up. But I think it's important to also look at their calculated allocated cost piece that is paid, and would just like to see that as well. So kind of what that looks like. So I know sometimes that can be kind of significant if you have a number of positions open. So just like to look at
Yes,
those.
when a position is vacant, a department still pays an allocated cost for that position, even though it's vacant. And so my solution is then eliminate the vacancy. It's quite simple. But departments, I used to be a department director. We hate to do that because we'll never get the FTE back. That's why directors are hesitant to do that. Right. But we can run
And
that.
Gary, if I can add, in central service departments, so in the general fund, Our cost allocations are based on historical costs. So when, like the cost allocations that the departments are paying now for the general fund services, it's actually for costs they incurred 2 years ago. So, like Gary said, even if they have vacancies, it wouldn't be appropriate for them not to pay it because they actually incurred it 2 years ago.
We'll run the numbers for you. Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, well, seeing no other questions or concerns, this concludes our Budget Committee meeting, quarterly meeting, as well as our other work today, colleagues. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. A special thanks to our Budget Committee, public members for taking their time out of your busy day to attend this. We want to thank you very much, and we'll be adjourned, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.